Welcome to our lecture on IAS 24, Related Party Disclosures. IAS 24 will be tested on a core level except for paragraph 28, which is excluded. Then when you look at the lecture notes, you will identify that I did not include notes regarding paragraph 25 to 27, and I want you to please self-study these three paragraphs, and if you have any questions, please let me know. For our students that make use of the revision pages that I provide, it is extremely important that you please open your revision page now. I am not going to include an additional recording on the revision page. Therefore, you need to use the lecture notes and watch the lecture and compare this to your revision page to ensure that you understand the flow of your revision page. And guys, important, therefore you will have to watch this lecture to ensure that you understand your revision page. This is a very theoretical standard, therefore you need to please bear with me. We will have to work through the theory and then I will explain the theory to you. You will identify in the notes that I've included quite a lot of pictures, diagrams and colors. Reason being is that I want to assist you to study this standard effectively. Now, what is the type of questions that you can expect in terms of IAS 24? You can either get theory questions or disclosure and presentation questions. When we refer to presentation in terms of IAS 24, it is important to identify that your related parties will not be presented on the face of your statement of financial position or profit and loss separately. It will be included in a note, therefore disclosed. But guys, it will be included in total amounts on your statement of financial position or your profit or loss. Your first step, you need to be able to identify if there is a related party. Does a related party transaction exist? And then secondly, if there is such a transaction, you need to be able to identify the transaction and always think about your journal entries, recognition. And if you have identified that there's a related party, you need to know how to disclose this in the note of the financial statements. The objective of IAS 24 to include information in the annual financial statements that will draw attention to the possibility that the financial position and profit or loss may have been affected by the existence of related parties and by transactions and outstanding balances, including commitments with such parties. Now, when you think about this, I've indicated to you that we need to include a note relating to our related parties. Therefore, your note will normally be at the end of your disclosures, one of the last few notes, and this will indicate, first, you will provide a list of related parties to that reporting entity. Remember, our reporting entity will be the entity that prepares the financial statements. And this is our reporting entity. Therefore, first, you will have to include a list of the related parties that you have identified. Then, secondly, important, indicate the type of transactions. Therefore, normally you will have a line item with the transactions. For example, if there is revenue generated by sales to a related party, the revenue amount. And important, you need to include the outstanding balance at year end that is included in your debtors relating to that related party. Why? The users of your financial statements will be able to use this information that you've provided to them to identify if they have a significant effect on either the statement of financial position or profit or loss. Now the scope of IAS 24. Now the standard will indicate to us how to identify related party relationships and transactions, how to identify outstanding balances, including commitments between an entity and its related party. Now guys, let's just quickly talk about this. How to identify transactions and outstanding balances. The standard indicates to us that a related party can either be a person or an entity. Now, that entity or person will have an effect on the reporting entity's financial statements being prepared. Now, the standard will assist us on identifying what is a related party transaction. Now, important, it will help us to identify what is related party transactions. But you need to be able to understand your basic journal entries, debits and credits, and how to calculate an outstanding balance, which I'm pretty sure that you are able to do. Then the standard will indicate to us that we need to disclose the circumstances in which disclosure of the items in A or B is required, and determining the disclosure to be made about those items. Therefore, the standard will indicate to you that you need to disclose the details relating to the related party transactions. And then, very important, IAS 24 requires disclosure in the consolidated and separate financial statements of a parent or investors with joint control of or significant influence over an investee. Okay, guys, therefore important that you know that you will have to disclose this in the consolidated as well as separate financial statements. And IAS 24 also applies to individual financial statements. What is a related party? Now, I want you to only focus on our picture. The reporting entity will be the entity that prepares the annual financial statements. The standard indicates to us that a related party can either be a person or an entity. And in this picture, we have a construction vehicle that will represent our entity that is related to the reporting entity. Now, when we look at a person, this can be a person or a close family member. Therefore, in our picture, we have, for example, our CEO of our reporting entity. And the wife of the CEO will be the close family member, or it can be the children of either the wife or the husband. Now, they indicate to us that the person, which is either a family member or the directly related person to the entity that has control or joint control over the reporting entity, or significant influence over the reporting entity, or that is part of key management of the reporting entity. And when we look at key management, this person can also be part of key management of a parent. Therefore, guys, when we talk about parent, then our reporting entity will be the subsidiary. Therefore, our member or person can be a key management personnel of the parent of our reporting entity as well. We have discussed our person. Let's have a look at an entity. An entity is related to a reporting entity if any one of the following conditions applies. Now, when you receive a theory question, this is the list that you need to work through and ask yourselves. Therefore, I've included diagrams, pictures for you to ensure that you remember this and that you know how to apply each sentence. Now, number one, the entity and reporting entity are members of the same group, which means that each parent, subsidiary, and fellow subsidiary is related to the others. Therefore, when you look at this, we have a parent, we have subsidiary 1 and subsidiary 2. Due to the fact that subsidiary 1 owns subsidiary 2, remember, we will recognize subsidiary 2 into our group, and our parent will indirectly own subsidiary 2 as well. Now they indicate to us the entity and the reporting entity. Therefore, the reporting entity in this diagram can either be the parent or subsidiary 1 or subsidiary 2. Number 2, one entity is an associate or joint venture of the other entity, or an associate or joint venture of a member of group of which the other entities is a member. Therefore, again, guys, where one entity is an associate or joint venture of the other entity, this associate or joint venture and the entity will be related. Number 3, where both entities are joint ventures of the same third party. In this scenario, we have a third party. Therefore, let's call this, for example, company A. Company B will be entity number 1 and company C will be entity number 2. Now, if both entities are joint ventures or or associates of the same entity, in this scenario, entity A, both of these entities, B and C, will be related parties. Therefore, in this scenario, all of these entities, third party, entity 1 and 2, will be related parties. Now, number 4 indicates to us the one entity is a joint venture of a third entity and the other entity is an associate. Therefore, when you look at this diagram, indicates to us that, for example, one entity, let's indicate that this will be entity number 1 is the joint venture. Entity number 2 is the associate. Therefore, the standard indicates to us that these entities, the one being the joint venture and the other one being the associate to the third party, will be related parties. Number 5, the entity is a post-employment benefit plan. Remember, we will cover this in IAS 19. What is a post-employee benefit plan? Now, they indicate the entity is a post-employment benefit plan for the benefit of employees of either of the reporting entity, therefore either the employees directly related to the reporting entity or an entity related to the reporting entity, which is our entity number 2. Now, guys, if the reporting entity itself is such a plan, the sponsoring employees are also related to the reporting entity. What you need to do in a theory question, identify first if there is a post-employee benefit plan. If yes, then include a diagram to ensure that you apply this paragraph correctly. Number 6, the entity is controlled or jointly controlled by a person identified in A, which is our number 1. Remember, a person identified, therefore this can be a person or a member of a close family that has 1, control or joint control, 2, significant influence, or 3, key management personnel of either the reporting entity or the parent of the reporting entity. Now, this paragraph indicates as the entity is controlled or jointly controlled. Therefore, in our scenario, this will be the spouse controls our reporting entity. 7, a person identified in A1. Therefore, guys, again, a person that has control, joint control, or significant influence, or key management personnel that has significant influence over the entity or is a member of key management personnel of the entity will be a related party. Number 8, the entity or any member of a group of which it is a part provides key management personnel services to the reporting entity or to the parent of the reporting entity, and then that entity or member of group that is part of that entity shall then be a related party in terms of IAS 24.